let's make a start. Welcome everybody to the Perfect CV webinar. The purposes of this webinar is to help you get a CV that's going to make you stand out from everybody else and to ensure that it sells you in the best possible light. So the format of the webinar is that I will talk through the presentation and share some of our top tips with you. And then we'll invite any questions. You can pop them in the chat as we go through the webinar, and I will endeavour to answer them at the end. I do also have one of my recruiters on the session as well today, so she can possibly answer as we go through as well. Now, I have popped you all on mute just because there is scheduled to be quite a few people on this webinar, so if we've got everybody speaking at once, it can turn into carnage quite quickly. So if you can pop any questions in the chat, that would be fantastic. Your feedback, of course, is always welcome. So I'll pop up my contact details at the end and look forward to hearing your feedback or in the chat as we go through. That would be great. So hopefully there's going to be no technical glitches today. I apologise if there are, but I'm sure we'll get them sorted out if there are. One thing I would say, I know that we have some people from all over the world on this webinar. What I'm going to talk about is our experience at Supertemps and S2 recruitment of dealing with CVs on a daily basis, most of which are UK based. So this does relate to the perfect CV in a UK marketplace. Okay, I'll just pop back to the waiting room and let the latest entrants in, and then we will make a start. Okay. There we go. Good. Okay. Super. So, without further ado, let's go. Before we begin, our credentials. So, my name is Sarah Elwood. I'm Managing Director of Supertemps and S2 Recruitment. I am a recruiter and have been recruiting in North Wales for the last 22 years, working both in North Wales and nationally as well. We have 2 offices here in North Wales and we have virtual teams that work further afield as well. And each month we are speaking to hundreds of job seekers and employers. So we've got quite a good grasp of what's going on out there in the marketplace, and of what employers like and of what employers dislike when it comes to CVs. We are members of the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, the Employment Agents Movement, the Gang Masters Licensing Authority, so we do know our stuff. All our staff are qualified, and these are our brands. S2 Recruitment is our IT and executive brand, Supertemps, and then Supertemps Construction, sorry. So who do we work with? Here's a snapshot of some of our clients. So we deal with a lot of large national charities. So Blind Veterans UK, you can see there in the middle, and local councils, colleges, universities, as well as smaller private independent organisations. Okay, let's just check there's nobody else in that waiting room. No, I don't think so. Good. Okay. So, these are just a few words from our candidates. I won't read them all out, but basically we've got some 5-star reviews there in terms of the service that we've offered our candidates and getting them into work. So hopefully from this you can see that we are a credible agency who knows our stuff. So what are we expecting from this session? So this session will help you understand why you need a CV. You know, why on earth do we need a CV? Understand what a CV should and, very importantly, should not do. Be clear on a good, simple CV structure. Now, today I'm all about keeping things simple, so I'm going to try not to baffle you with the science of CVs. It's going to help you avoid CV clangers. And it's going to help you avoid a one-size-fits-all approach, because that is not what a hiring manager wants to see. It will hopefully help you get ahead in the race to stand out. And ultimately, we're hoping that this session will help you to get that job. So, just looking at some CV stats. Now, CV Library is one online job board. Now, just bear in mind that this is one online job board. So CV Library have 15.9 million CVs registered with them. They have 360,000 new and updated CVs monthly and 15,000 CVs registered or updated daily. So I think you can kind of get the picture here. This is just one job board, and this is why your CV needs to work as hard for you as you can possibly get it to. CV Library web statistics, so they have 3 million job applications per month, which take place through CV Library. 10.1 million monthly visits and 4.3 million unique users. That's an awful lot of CVs and an awful lot of users. So this is why it's so important for yours to stand out. Okay. So how do you ensure your CV hits the target? Before we start and go through the presentation, I'd just like to say that there are many opinions on how to do a CV. And often in every case, there isn't a right or a wrong answer. It can be down to what you feel comfortable with, how you feel comfortable portraying yourself. It should very much be about what the company is expecting and what you're trying to get across to the company. So it should be targeted in line with the specific job advert, which we'll come to in a moment. But this presentation, as I said earlier, is about our experience as recruiters and what we hear from hiring managers and from dealing with hundreds of CVs per week. So in the last 7 days, I've done a little research poll via my LinkedIn with employers that we deal with. So this is employers and hiring managers and recruiters that we deal with. And we asked them, what is your #1 pet hate about the CVs you receive? Now, 54% of them said bad spelling and presentation. So note to self, get that right. 37% hated the fact that it wasn't targeted to the specific position. So they just sent a general CV, a catch-all CV. 3% didn't like the inappropriate photograph that was on it. And we do get some inappropriate photographs here at Supertemps. So I would urge you not to do that. And then 6% put other. Now in the comments in there were things like inappropriate email address that can really put you off a candidate, and not clarifying the level of skill proficiency when it comes to listing your skills. People just list their skills and don't say, well, I'm expert at this one and not so expert at that one. You might not want to put not so expert, but you know, medium, high, low, or something like that. So actually defining how proficient you are in skills is a good idea. Okay. So CV, what does it mean? Well, curriculum vitae is actually the Latin for the course of one's life. So this is a story of how you got here today, how you got here in your career. So it should be telling that story. Now, by telling that story, we don't want chapter and verse of every single little detail that's gone on in the past X number of years of your history, but you need to pull out the most applicable points, the most relevant points to the job that you are applying for. And what's the purpose of a CV? Your CV should be just a snapshot of you. Its purpose is to make the reader want to know more. The ultimate purpose of the CV, of course, is to get you that interview. So you don't want to be putting everything on your CV, you know, but it needs to contain enough relevant things to get you that interview or to make that reader want to know more about you. It needs to contain enough relevant content to grab attention, and it needs to leave out waffle, irrelevant content, or anything that is not going to be of interest to the reader. Is there such thing as a perfect CV? Probably not really, because it can be a matter of opinion. Some of it is down to preference and opinion, and a perfect CV for one job would not be a perfect CV for another job. But you can make it as perfect as possible, And that's what we're trying to help you with today. So how would you do that? Well, by considering the vacancy and the organisation that you are applying to. So really taking into consideration what they're asking for in the job description, what they're asking for in the advert, doing some research about that organisation on the web, knowing what they're wanting and using keywords, and we'll come on to that shortly, throughout your CV. You can also help make it as perfect as possible by tailoring your CV appropriately to that job, by delivering it appropriately, by following their instructions. You know, if they've said email CV to, then you email CV to. If they've said, you know, drop it in with a covering letter, then drop it in with a covering letter. So make sure you deliver it how they ask you to deliver it. Also, by following up appropriately. If any job application is worth doing, it's worth following up. So make sure you're doing that. And this will help get you as near to perfect as you can be. Okay, just checking back to my waiting room. No, we're good. Okay. This is where I would urge you to put yourselves right throughout this CV writing process. You need to put yourselves inside the mind of a HR manager, of the hiring manager that's going to be reading your CV. It's a very busy place. They're very busy people. So it's your job to make it as easy as possible for that hiring manager to want to hire you. From initial application to interview and everything in between, you need to be clear, be concise, have researched what they're looking for, be using their keywords and their terms and their turn of phrase back to them in your application, and that will create rapport and enable you to stand a better chance of getting that job, or of at least standing out amongst the applicants. Okay, so some fundamentals. Length, how long should your CV be? 2 pages is ideal. However, some professions may warrant more, particularly if it's a very technical or a senior role. There may be quite a lot of information that you need to get on there. So 2 pages, more than 2 pages is fine if it is needed and if it is relevant. I would encourage you to make it more than 2 pages rather than squash it all onto 2 pages with no margins and no white space. But I would stress that more than 2 pages is only fine if it is needed, and if you can be critical, read through it and still think, yeah, okay, that is all relevant and I do need to put that in, and maybe pass it to somebody else to read as well. But as you're reading it, put yourself back in the mind of the hiring manager. Headings, ensure each section is clearly headed to assist the reader. Font and margins, make sure they're clear and consistent size and font. Arial 10 or 12 is a good one because it's a very easy to read font. Don't have your margins too small, and ensure there is some white space just to make it easier for the reader to see the words, the text on the page. Make sure you proofread it, check the dates, check the formatting, check the layout and spelling and grammar. And it's a good idea, as I said, to have somebody else to check it too. You know, going back to those employers, 54% of them hated the fact that spelling and grammar was incorrect. So, and there's no excuse for that these days. You know, I'll highlight some software later on, Grammarly, that can help you with your grammar and spelling. Keywords, so tailor your CV to the role every time and use keywords from the advert and job description throughout your CV. Some recruiters match skills using applicant tracking systems or bots, and you want your CV to show as a match for the job in question. Okay, now sometimes you might just be applying straight to, you might just be posting your CV or emailing it straight to a hiring manager. But certainly if you're uploading it to job boards, or if you're involved with agencies, or even some large employers, you need to make sure that it's maximized for what you want to be found for. So let's just take a minute and look on the subject of bots. Look, what does this mean and what do I need to do here? Applicant tracking systems, or resume robots as they're called, can reject up to 75% of CVs before they even get to a human. So, as I say, if you're registered on the job boards, the likes of Reed, CV Library, Indeed, etc., you need to make sure that your CV is maximised for the jobs that you're wanting to find. So if you're looking for marketing manager positions, you need to have keywords throughout your CV related to marketing manager, marketing, branding, and that sort of thing. Okay, just got another person in the waiting room. We'll just, oops, just let them in. Okay. Sorry, we've just gone back a few slides there, haven't we? Okay. So, keyword research. Check the job description and the job advert and the employer's website and any industry related job portals for relevant keywords and include them in your CV. Titles, use standard job titles in your keywords, particularly if your former title was something a little far out like brand warrior, you know. When you're a hiring manager, so if you need to, again, put yourself back in the mind of a hiring manager. If you're a hiring manager or a recruiter working on behalf of an organisation and it's your job to find the correct candidate on the job boards for this role, you're going to put in the words. So again, marketing manager, you'll put marketing manager, senior brand marketer, maybe, head of marketing. These are the words that you're going to be typing in to find the CV. Now, if you haven't got those words on your CV, there won't be a match made. So your CV won't be showing up to those people. Okay. Formatting. Many algorithms won't read CVs with graphics or photographs or tables even. So try and keep it as clear and simple as possible. And we would urge you not to use a photograph. And make sure your CV is consistent. Ensure that it tallies with your LinkedIn profile and uses similar keywords, so that this gives a congruent picture of you, so that when the hiring manager then goes to look at you on LinkedIn, they will be able to see, oh yes, those profiles do match, rather than seeing a completely different person. So what do we include or not include on our CVs? Do you have a title at the top that says curriculum vitae? No, that's an absolute waste of time and space, of valuable space. You know, remember, you've only got 2 pages ideally. It's clear what it is. Your title at the top should be your name. Name, location, contact details, email, phone. Yeah, absolutely, that's vital. That needs to be forefront, top of the CV. And these days, you don't even need to have your full address. It can just be which town that you're in. It's quite acceptable to just have your town. But make sure that there are contact details on there for people to get hold of you. You might choose to put your LinkedIn profile on there. Only do this if it's up to date. If you haven't been on LinkedIn for the last 10 years, then don't be citing your LinkedIn profile. Photograph, we would say no. In some countries, they are big on photographs. It never really took off to a big degree in the UK. So we would say no, and also it doesn't help with the bots and things. So I'd say no. Personal profile, yes, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Absolutely, personal profile at the start of your CV. Those few paragraphs to highlight about yourself. Key achievements, that's an optional one, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through the presentation. So they may come out anyway in your job roles, but you may want a separate paragraph about your key achievements. Employment history, definitely, absolutely vital. Every employer will want to know where you've worked, how long you worked there for, and what your duties were in those roles. Education and qualifications, yeah, absolutely, employers want to know about that. Key skills, another optional one, which we'll talk more about shortly, relevant in some cases, but not in all. Hobbies and interests, again, it's an optional one. Personally, as an employer and a hiring manager, yep, I want to know about the whole person. I want to know what interests them and what hobbies and interests they've got. It can be down to personal preference for yourselves. But if you've got room, it might be as well to put it on. Referee details, again, optional, and you don't need to cite on a CV who your referees are. You could just put on their references, except referees on request, and then let them have referee details later. Date of birth and marital status and dependents, etc. Now, they don't affect your ability to do your job. It's illegal for employers to discriminate on this basis in the UK. So I would urge you not to be putting those on your CV. Okay. So personal profile. First of all, we're going to look at the things that I've said definitely you need to have on your CV. So personal profile. Some people think, should I put a personal profile on? Yes or no? We would say yes, absolutely. This is your time to shine. So you have a few seconds to grab the reader's attention. So why wouldn't you use this chance? Your personal profile should be 4 to 6 lines maximum at the start of your CV, under your contact details, no more than 200 words. It should always be tailored to the role in question. So have the keywords from the job description and the job adverts in it. And it can be written in the first or third person. It should define who you are, what you can bring to this company, and highlight your career goals. Now remember, you're trying to make the job as easy as possible for a hiring manager. So you need to be stating what you can bring to their company to make them want to hire you. If you're a new graduate or newly out of school and you don't have lots of experience, then in your personal profile, you can focus on the skills and knowledge that you have gained during your education, and any transferable skills that you may have, or any soft skills that you have gained. At the bottom of this slide here, there's just a couple of resources. So you can see cvlibrary.co.uk and read.co.uk have some great career advice, as do many other websites. So do some Googling and have a look at some of their examples. So in a personal profile, what does good look like? Just to let you know, you don't have to take notes on all this. I will send out a link to the video after this presentation. So I'll send an email out tomorrow with this in so that you can refer back to it, because I know there's quite a lot of information here. So what does a good personal profile look like? Something like this. So don't forget, it's got to define who you are, what you can bring to this company, and highlight your career goals. So highly skilled HR manager, that's who you are. Looking to resume a position in the sector, extremely knowledgeable with 10 years industry experience, possesses a wide skill set, including effective communication, negotiation, dispute management, and managing organisational change. Wow, that's what you're bringing to the company. Looking to re-establish a career in a progressive organisation after a short career break to take care of a newborn. That's your career goals. Okay, so all those 3 things are ticked off in that personal profile. The next one is for a recent graduate. So a recent business graduate with a 2-1 degree from Newcastle University. That's who you are. Looking to secure a graduate position in marketing. That's your career goals. Having undertaken a year in industry working within the marketing department of soap giant Procter & Gamble, I am now keen to further my marketing skills and experience with a forward-thinking employer. So what can you bring to this company? Well, as a new graduate, you might not have an awful lot of career experience, but one thing that this person has put in there is they have a year in industry working in the marketing department of a soap giant. That is what they can bring to a new employer. You know, that's a big company, Procter & Gamble. So if you've had a work placement in a big company that you can shout about, mention it in your personal profile. And the final one here, as an experienced sales manager, my proactive approach resulted in numerous important contract wins. My effective networking skills, what he's bringing to the company, have provided my company with valuable client leads, and my ability to convert has resulted in a 44% increase in business for my current employer. After 5 years in sales, I am currently seeking a new challenge which will utilise my meticulous attention to detail and friendly professional manner. So that's his career goals, or her career goals. So there's some examples of your personal profiles. How does that look on your CV? So you've got your name, your contact details at the top. Following that, your personal profile. Okay. Onto your employment history. Always put your most recent position first and work backwards in chronological order. You know, an employer wants to see that line about you, that sentence about you, and then, okay, what have they done most recently? So focus on the last 10 to 15 years of your employment history. If your employment history is longer than that, you could just summarize it in brief bullet points beneath your most recent history, but 10 to 15 years is sufficient. Clearly show the employer name, dates of employment, job title, and some concise bullet points to highlight your duties and achievements. So what does that look like? So here's an example. So you have your employment history, job title, your employer's name here, maybe the industry sector that it was, if the reader might not be familiar with that, dates employed, and some key bullet points here. Okay. After your career history, then move on to education, training and qualifications, again in reverse chronological order with the most recent first. Include the names, dates, the names of the establishment, dates, and the location. You don't need to put the whole address of the establishment, but which city and which country you were in. Summarise, if there's several qualifications like GCSEs, A-levels, summarise them rather than listing each individual one. Again, you're trying to save space on your CV and get the most important information across. Okay. Education, training and qualifications. So this is how it looks. So we have most recent first. So your most recent might be your professional qualifications that you've done in the workplace. Ideally, which we don't have on here, we would have some dates against those. Then educational establishments that you've attended, and a summary of the grades that you got at those establishments. Okay. So going back to our include or not to include, we've dealt with the things that we've said definitely we want on there. So let's have a look at the optional ones, or some of the optional ones. So one with the LinkedIn profile, I mentioned already, you know, look at that, include that on your CV in the contact details only if it's up to date. But let's have a look at key skills. So this is an optional one. Should you put key skills on your CV? And the ideal place to do it would be here, just beneath the personal profile, but above employment history. So yes, you might want to highlight any key skills that you can evidence to make them stand out to the reader. It would depend on how much space you have on your CV and whether or not you feel your skills are evidenced clearly and succinctly elsewhere on the CV. Again, you should only put here skills that are relevant for the role that you're applying for. You know, if the employer is asking in their job adverts, they're looking for somebody who can manage change in an organisation. For example, what you might put in your key skills is key skill number 1, I successfully managed change by da 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 da, and show how you can demonstrate it. Or they might be asking for somebody who can work unsupervised. So you may say solely responsible for working alone to achieve X, for example. But these need to be clear, quantifiable skills. Don't just waffle here, and only use it if the skills aren't evidenced elsewhere on the CV. Key achievements. Now this is an interesting one, and you're probably not going to have room for key achievements and key skills, but it might be that you have achieved things throughout your life or throughout your various roles, and you want to bullet point those achievements. Now you could either do it here by having a separate section for key achievements throughout your career, or you could put at the end of each of your places of employment the key achievements for that particular role, which might actually be a better way of doing it, to my mind. So yeah, you could summarise it at the end of each period of employment. And again, this would include things like salesperson of the year, for example. I increased profitability by X, or I generated X income. I obtained X social media recommendations or mentions for my customer service. You know, anything that's related to the job that you're applying for that's going to make you stand out. Hobbies and interests and references. Now, should you put your hobbies and interests on the CV? If there's room, I would include some, but I would be careful what you put here. What are your hobbies? You know, what you don't want to be putting here is going to the pub, or, you know, anything that's going to show you in a bad light. You know, if you can't think of anything constructive, then I would leave it off. But as an employer, it gives you an all-round whole picture of the person. So if you've got space for it, put it on. Again, references, you can leave off completely or put available on request. That's perfectly fine. So just we're coming towards the end, I will show you some examples of CVs, but some CV do's. Always be concise and straight to the point. Don't waffle, I've already said that. Put yourself in the mind of the hiring manager throughout the process. I can't stress this enough. Make it as easy as possible for him or her to see why you are the person for this role. Try and use strong, positive language. So Joe Blogs delivers, proactively managed, successfully trained. You know, don't be weak and wishy-washy. Thoroughly read the job adverts, the job description, and use the language and keywords used in that throughout your CV. Again, it's about building rapport, and it's about getting your CV found in searches on job boards and things. Provide evidence and avoid being vague. Back up your claims concisely. So try and use brief examples of how you delivered, how you increased GP, how much you increased gross profit by, that sort of thing. Market yourself. You know, this is no time to be shy. This is your time to shine. So you need to be selling yourself. This document is about selling yourself. Check spelling, grammar and dates, and get somebody else to check them as well. Explain any gaps. You know, if there was gaps between your employment when you went traveling or, you know, had children, explain those gaps, because an employer will ask and will wonder. Be consistent. Either write it in the third person, so I am a, and I worked at, or in the third person. So an example would be a professional graduate seeking employment, where you're not actually saying I and me. Ask someone else to read it through. So double checking. So they're the CV do's. What are the CV don'ts? Don't waffle, absolutely don't waffle. You'll lose the reader at the first sentence. Avoid weak or negative language. You know, in this job I tried to, I attempted to. No, you need to be powerful. I did, I succeeded. Don't lie on your CV. You will be found out and it won't look good, so don't lie. Don't use buzzwords or acronyms which the reader may not understand. If there's a lot of abbreviations which were specific to your company that nobody else is going to understand, don't use them. Don't put your work contact details on it, your work telephone number, if you don't want an employer to phone you on that number, you know, not a good idea. Don't use a questionable email address, such as sexybabes@hotmail or something similar. You want to be painting a professional picture of yourself right through this process. Don't put getting drunk with mates as your hobby. Again, put yourself, oh, typo there, look, attention to detail. Put yourself in a good light. And don't submit a CV which isn't targeted to the position in question. You know, make sure it's targeted every time. So what does a finished product look like? So this is 2 pages of a CV, and I'll actually just switch across to, let me just switch across to the actual document with this on. Okay, so here's a nice, clear, concise layout for a CV. So your full name, contact details at the top, your personal profile, key skills, if you're going to use that section, employment history, most recent first, job title, put your employer's name, dates employed, then going on to training and qualifications, and last of all, hobbies and interests and references. So you're going from your most important information on the front to your least important but still relevant information at the bottom down here. And as I said earlier, you know, there are several ways of writing a CV. So let me just show you another example here. So forename, professional title, location, personal profile or professional profile, career summary, and this one has listed the key responsibilities in each role and the key achievements of each role as they've gone throughout the CV. So that can be a good way of doing it as well. And then at the bottom, education and qualifications, and then references available on request. Okay, so that's what it needs to be looking like. Useful links and questions. So I've put some useful links on here that you might want to look at. So our channel, supertemps.co.uk, there's a blog on there with some job seekers advice, all sorts of advice about CVs, interviews, etc. Likewise, our other website, s2recruitment.co.uk, there's a blog for job seekers advice. Our YouTube channel, so there's some videos on there if you're facing redundancy, and last week we did the webinar of the 7 traits of highly successful job seekers. You might want to have a look at that. That's all on our YouTube channel. And then there's some other links here to some other job portals which do very good career advice, and also sample CVs for if you're a graduate or if you're being made redundant, or for different stages in your career. So I would urge you to have a look at these. And then this is Grammarly.com that I mentioned for checking spelling and grammar. It's an add-on, I think it's a Microsoft add-on that you can just have running on your browser, and that will check spelling and grammar as you go along. So yeah, we'll come to questions. If you pop your questions in the chat box, and we'll come to those shortly. Okay, it's just my mouse has gone a bit weird. Okay. How else can we help you? Well, we have, we're running another session next week, how to ace that interview. So all sorts of tips for interviews. So feel free to register on that via Eventbrite if you wish to join that one. And we'll be running more dates in 2021 for our job search webinars. So it just leaves me to say thank you for your time. If you have found this even remotely useful, please leave us a review on Google or Facebook reviews with Supertemps Limited or S2 Recruitment. This is me, Sarah Elwood. So if you want to get in touch with me, there's my details and my LinkedIn profile, and our contact details are all on there as well. So let's hop across to the chat and see. I did have a question actually sent up front, which was, I would like to ask if in the UK CVs, it is better to put a small description of yourself under the name or not. So a small description of yourself under the name, yes, I would do that in terms of a personal profile, which is what we've just covered in the presentation. So a small description of who you are, what you can bring to the company and what your job aspirations are, but not a personal small description of yourself. So I don't want to see anything on there which is, you know, I'm Sarah and I'm 5'10" and I've got 2 dogs, 1 cat and 3 kids. Absolutely not, no way. So I hope that answers that question. And let's pop across to the chat and see what we've got going on in here. Okay. So, okay. Do we need a short personal presentation on the CV? Short personal presentation, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do we need a short personal presentation on the CV? Do you mean a video? I wouldn't include any video or anything on it, no. No, only the things that I've just covered really. What would you write as a master manager applying for an internship? Would you say you are currently undertaking the master? What would you write as a master manager applying for an internship? Would you say that you're currently undertaking the master? Yeah, if you're currently undertaking a master's, yes, you need to be clear about what you're currently doing. So yeah, I'd just say be honest about what you're currently doing. And if you're applying, if you're doing a master's, but you're applying for an internship, so maybe that's a role that you might be overqualified for, perhaps. Just quantify why you're applying for that. You know, why are you applying for a role that you may be overqualified for, which is currently in the COVID situation. There's a lot of this going on. Very highly qualified people applying for jobs that they're well overqualified for, but given the fact that COVID's been around, employers understand that, and you can put that as a short line in your personal profile, you know, qualify why you may be applying for a job which is actually beneath your skills, so to speak. Is it advisable to write curriculum vitae as a heading? No, absolutely not, and we covered that one, so no, you're just wasting valuable space on your CV. Any specifics for tech-orientated CVs, and what do you do if you don't really have a reference? Okay, so tech-orientated CVs, yeah, I would, if it's a tech job and you're applying to a technical organisation for a technical job, leave in all the technical jargon. Try and minimise it if it's company specific, but it's quite acceptable if you're going for a technical role to use a technical CV. If you are going for a role which is for a generalist role, but you've got a very technical CV, I would urge you to try and adapt it for the role that you are going for. So try and pull out any transferable skills, any less technical skills, and get that across if you're trying to use it on a general basis. What to do if you don't really have a reference? Speak to the employer and see who they'll accept as referees. You know, it might be that you've got a tutor at college, or that you've had an accountant in the past, or hopefully somebody that you've worked with, or they may take a family friend. So speak to them and find out what criteria they have for referees. But yeah, I wouldn't be putting names and addresses of referees on my CV until you found out who they want for referees. Okay. Would it be possible for us to get this recorded session? Yes, I will email a link to this in a follow-up email tomorrow, so that's not a problem. Thank you so much, appreciated. You're very welcome. That's good to hear. Thanks for the presentation, very useful. That's good to hear, Will. Thank you very much for that. Do Supertemps offer CV reviews? We're not currently able to offer them. If you're registered with us for work and working through us, yes, we do offer CV reviews, but we don't offer it as a paid service. No, not currently. We don't have capacity to do that at the moment. But if you're here and registered for work, yes, we will review your CV before we send it forward to employers. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Right, okay, so I think we have covered all the questions. If there are any more questions, pop them quickly in the chat. Otherwise, we will finish off. So we're just on time now, aren't we? But yeah, thank you, everybody. I hope that's been helpful. I will send out the video tomorrow, the link to the video. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us or contact me at Supertemps, and we'll do all that we can to help.